Welcome back to the BettorOff PropCast for the conference championship weekend in the NFL. We got two great games for you this weekend. We're excited to get into it, excited to talk about bets. I'm your host, Dan Skolowski. With me, as always, is the esteemed Bobby Stanley Jr., Mr. Prop Holliday. I know we are very excited to dive into these games. Crazy weekend last week. But I'm sure we'll have to touch on that in just a bit. But, Bob, I guess you'll just start right there. So what just go over your emotions. I would love to hear first off as a Rams fan,
Sure.
how you dealt with that Bucs game last weekend, but just what you saw, just the chaos that was the divisional round in the NFL.
In general, I thought the Sunday games were better than the Saturday games, but that's no discredit to the Saturday games. They were just a little bit, more low scoring, but both obviously decided at the end of the game, which was awesome. Super excited to see Joe Burrow. I feel like we've been talking about him all season. Him and Herbert, we were going back and forth as young guys we love, and to see him in this position now is awesome. And then the Sunday games is arguably the best playoff football I've ever seen in my short life. I'm only 32, so I'm not old, but I'm not young. It was awesome. It was some of the best football I've ever seen. As a Rams fan, I don't know if you saw the video. I went fairly nuts I guess the second half. But I would say it's awesome to be here in the beginning of the NFL season. As a Rams fan, you expected to be in this position when you signed Matt Stafford. Month of November was difficult. You didn't know what to expect from this team. Stafford was turning the ball over a few times a game. It was costing them games. The defense did not look good. And then they bounced back late in the late stretch of December into January, but still struggle with San Fran. So it's really kind of an up and down feeling. Watching them give away another lead was startling, but it was to Tom Brady. But I think what you wanted to see, what all Rams fans wanted to see, because we didn't have this in Jared Goff, is do you have a quarterback with 45 seconds on the clock that can march you down the field with the playoffs and the game on the line? We didn't have that with Jared Goff, and we saw that with Matt Stafford the other day. So feeling awesome to be in this position. It is definitely scary as hell because we're playing Shanahan and the Niners, which we are 0-6 over the last six. But a lot of those games, the last three, I think were won in the last minute of the game. So obviously good teams win those games, but how long can your luck stay that way? How many coin flips can you win in a row? So I love the Rams' chances. And then on the other side, you have Kansas City and Cincinnati. And I have low expectations for Cincinnati. I think it's just, everything is extra just for them being here. I'd love to see them put up a competitive performance to give promise to that fan base. But in general, it's Mahomes 4 years in a row in the AFC Championship game. So first thoughts right off the bat.
Yeah, just when it was 4th and 1 for the Bucs and Fournette runs it in. Do you think the jig is up for the Rams, or what do you think? Are you saying like that's it? It has to be. There's no way Tom Brady loses this game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
down. You got to realize 2 weeks earlier, I watched them give away the game to the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. Week 18, we had a 17-point lead. At that point in McVay's career, if he had a lead at halftime, he never lost the game. And now I think we were up 20 or 23. I think it was 20 at some point in this game. And I said, the defense is reeling. Tom Brady is in Tom Brady mode. But whatever they saw in this, whatever coverages they saw, obviously, I think they picked up blitz cover 2. They saw that the short corner was not playing Cooper Kupp as a man. He was playing that short area. Cooper Kupp took off, and Stafford just threw a beautiful pass. Watching him run down the field screaming, get to the line of scrimmage so they could spike it. Like, he was happy, and then he saw one of the linemen was dragging ass, and then he got angry, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is everything you want to
Yeah.
see from your franchise quarterback.
All right. Yeah. Because I was pretty certain that when Fournette ran that in, I was like, that's it.
I thought it was over.
It's done. Like it's
Momentum is huge in the
yeah.
NFL. It's even bigger in the playoffs, and we had none of it.
Yeah, exactly. At home, Tom Brady, all the momentum, not where you want to be, but got Cooper Kupp, and that's all you really needed. So, all right, that is now looking ahead to this next weekend. We are actually going to start off just touching on real quick our PropCast parlay. And I think before I can even start to talk about the PropCast parlay, I think that this is just. I think I need to wear this while we're talking about it because I had it exactly how I wanted it. If you listen to the podcast, I thought Josh Allen had a very good chance of running it in. I think even if the Bills got the ball in overtime, Josh Allen has a very good, because they don't need to play. He doesn't need to throw the ball as much. They can kind of slow it down and they can play more of their tempo. I was like, if they get the ball in OT, I feel good about Allen. They didn't get the ball. He didn't get a chance. But I've missed 9 consecutive PropCast parlay legs. This bag on my head is warranted, and so I just felt as though before we got into this week's PropCast parlay, I needed to, you know, this is a formal apology to all those who tailed the PropCast parlay. But like I said, if you saw on Twitter, you're out of your damn mind if you don't think I want the ball back in my hands Sunday night for the win. And that's exactly what I'm going for. So, with that being said, it's a new chapter and we're going to win. Also, with that being said, I did say that I was going to throw a little something extra. I am going to put an additional $25 of my own money into this PropCast parlay. So it's going to be a $50 bet because I just feel awful at 2 weeks in a row. I just choked away the last leg. That's how the cookie crumbles. But we are looking at how we're looking forward. So it's going to be a $50 PropCast parlay for the championship weekend. We are going to start out. If you don't remember, I'm going to give a leg. Prop Holliday is going to give a leg, and then you, the users on Twitter, are going to be able to pick the third leg. We're going to put $50 on it, and if that bet hits, we're going to give it away to somebody who retweets the tweet and is following at BettorOff Sports. So I know Bob has a pick in the early game on Sunday, so I'm going to let him go first. Bob, what is your pick?
So, it ties into what I think the game script is going to be, but I'm going to go with Joe Mixon over 57.5 rushing yards. So, we could talk about the first matchup. Cincinnati ended up pulling it out. We saw arguably the greatest rookie wide receiver performance of all time in Jamar Chase. He had over 200 something yards. He had 3 touchdowns. Burrow went off, and kind of the other weapons really fell to the wayside, but they were able to win that game. I don't think that is another recipe for success. I don't think they're going to duplicate that. Obviously, they're going to feed the ball to Jamar Chase. I'm not suggesting they're not. I don't think he sees another 12 receptions. So they're going to have to get creative. And they obviously just saw what the Kansas City Chiefs offense just did with the Buffalo Bills. They went shot for shot, score for score, and kept that pace going. You just don't want to give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes over and over again. So I think the way they have to do that, they have to control the clock. So I feel that we see a lot of Joe Mixon this weekend. So I'm going to go with Joe Mixon over 57.5 rushing yards. In the first matchup, I think he had 12 carries. He had something like, 46 yards. He did a lot of his dirty work through the air. He had 8 targets, 7 receptions, 40 yards. I think we see that flip a little bit in the other way. I think we see about 14 to 15 carries for Joe Mixon. And eventually, I do think he breaks one. If you look at last week, Josh Allen averaged something like 6 yards per carry, 6.2 yards per carry on the few touches he had. So the recipe for success, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, is you got to play keep away. As good as Joe Burrow and those wide receivers have been, I think you have an edge. You have an advantage with your running game over this Chiefs offense. So use it. I mean, Joe Mixon is, he's arguably he's a Pro Bowl running back. He could be an All-Pro at some point. So they need to play to their strengths. They need to play with the few advantages they have. And I think we see a lot of Joe Mixon on Sunday for this Bengals offense.
All right, there we go. Bob's leg is going to be Joe Mixon over on rush yards. Now, my leg is hitting on like I said, I want the ball back in my hands on the late game. I want to win it. I want to walk off. I was going back and forth. I'd love to pick touchdown scorers because they boost the odds. Quite frankly, they get some juice. But now that there's $50 in the pot, I didn't need to boost the odds as much as I normally have to because the payouts could be twice as big. So I am going to go with Tyler Higbee on the Rams over 39.5 receiving yards. Now, he had 7 targets last game. He only caught 4 of them, and he went for 51 yards. Obviously, he was a very favorable target of Stafford last week. He has 3. He's a big 49er killer. He has 3 touchdowns in the 2 games earlier this season against the Niners, 2 of which were at that game at home. So they're going to be back in LA. I just love, I love tight ends. I haven't gone to a tight end in a while. I'm going back to a tight end. I'm going with a straight over under, no fancy alts, no touchdown scores, nothing like this. But I want the rock in my hands, and I want the rock in Tyler Higbee's hands. So Tyler Higbee over, the line right now is at 39.5. We'll see where that falls to by the time we place it in. But Tyler Higbee over 39.5. If he gets 7 targets again, he catches 5 instead of 7. I mean, he's going to get over. He's going to get over that pretty easily, I think. So, I like Tyler Higbee over. Right now it's set at 39.5. But the last leg is down to the people. So go onto our Twitter. By the time this video is up and you're listening to this, go put your 2 cents in for what the third leg should be. And then we're going to have a vote for what the third leg should actually be. And then that is going to go in to the parlay. You will have the third leg of the parlay, and we are going to raffle off the winnings, the imminent winnings. I said this last week. The winnings are imminent this week. I'm telling you, this is the week. And if it's not, I'm not going to be the one who fucks it up this week. I promise. So there we go. Go check out the PropCast parlay. Now let's talk about some of these upcoming games. So let's just go in order. Starting at Sunday at 3 o'clock, Bengals at Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by a whole touchdown, -7 right now. The over-under set at 54.5, which could either indicate a shootout or a blowout. Prop Holiday, what are you kind of thinking just this game? I know you talked about it a little bit with Mixon, but, that 54.5, is this going to be a shootout, or is this going to be, Chiefs running rampant?
I think the Bengals are able to keep it close. That +7 line is a little bit too high for me. I'd love to get it at 7.5, but just looking at it off paper, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you've essentially won your Super Bowl. They beat the second best team in the NFL last week. How do you go into this game? Do you feel a sense of relief? Do you already feel a sense of accomplishment that this should be a cakewalk? We already beat the Bills and Josh Allen. And there is kind of that momentum high. There's a come down from winning in overtime at such a big stage. I truly believe that. If you go to the other side, you look at this Bengals team, we mentioned it earlier, they have nothing to lose. They shouldn't even be here. They're ahead of schedule. It's Joe Burrow's second year. They're in the AFC Championship game with the youngest wide receiver core and I guess overall talent core in the league. If you include Mixon, I think he's still like 26 or 27. So you have a team with nothing to lose, playing a team they've already beaten. So they don't fear the Chiefs. As far as the over-under is concerned, I would expect a higher scoring affair. 28-24, I guess, would be a guess with Kansas City winning. That wouldn't hit this 54.5 line, but if I'm off by a touchdown, then obviously it goes in. So I would love to get the Bengals at 7.5. If you can get them at 7.5, I would be all over it. 7 seems more of a push situation, but I think the Bengals keep it close. I do think eventually Kansas City wins, so I do not see a blowout here. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. Not as good, obviously, as the Bills and the Chiefs, but I do think it's going to be a pretty good game and something we're going to see for probably the next 5 years. We talk about comparisons all the time, me and you. We have arguably Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. They're Brady and Manning, right? They're our generation. They'll be Peyton Manning. And where's Joe Burrow fit in this? Is he Phillip Rivers? Is he Eli Manning? Does he squeak out 2 in there at some point? Obviously, not everybody fits into a nice little round hole square peg situation, but Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, these are guys that are not going to go away. But obviously, the upper echelon is Mahomes and Allen. So I'm excited to see this matchup.
Yeah, it'd be some high praise to be called the new Eli Manning. Anyway, yeah. So I agree with you. I think -7 is pretty, I don't know, offensive to the to the Bengals for being in the
Considering they beat them, and they didn't even beat them like week 3. They beat them week 17, like it was 4 weeks ago.
And this is the AFC Championship game. Like a whole touchdown is a pretty sizable spread. Week 10 for a team. To be favored by a whole touchdown. I agree with you. I think 7 is kind of pretty rude, honestly, to the Bengals. But these are some of the best people in the world making these odds, and I I remember saying last week I had the over on the Tampa Bay on the Rams game. It was like 48.5. And before the Bucs scored that last touchdown, it was sitting at 47. And I was like, I hate that these lines makers are so good at their job. It is so frustrating. Like 40, it's sitting at 47. It might have opened at 47 or 46.5 at the beginning of the week and then moved up to 48.5. But I was like, if Tom Brady and the Bucs don't score here, the Rams run out the clock, I lose by 1.5 points. Fortunately, obviously for me, Fournette got in and that bet did win. But I would like to say that this is a crazy line at 7. But these people are pretty good at their jobs, so we will see. But I would love to see the Bengals definitely make a fool out of the sports books, and have a lot of people take their money from that. So, all right, so we're definitely both leaning Chiefs there. But then for the third week in a row, Prop Holiday has got to talk about in a non-biased fashion is Los Angeles Rams. 6:30 on Sunday night, 49ers at Rams. We talked about this is a division matchup. These teams have already met twice, and the Niners have won both times, but it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in one season, especially a division rival. Or is it? Bob, what do you think?
Because I'm going to be talking about this in a non-biased fashion, I'm going to open up with a play I actually like for the San Francisco 49ers. I think George Kittle has a big role in this game. He's been fairly quiet over the course of the playoffs, even the end of the season. But similar to you mentioned, Tyler Higbee has had success against the Niners. George Kittle has had success against the LA Rams. The middle of that defense is the most susceptible. And since that matchup in Week 18, the Rams have had additional injuries to their secondary. They lost Jordan Fuller for the season. Hopefully Taylor Rapp comes back. He was out last week. If you see Eric Weddle anywhere near George Kittle, just live bet any of his over yards. So I love Kittle over 4.5 receptions. I love him over 52.5 yards. I think the main focus of the Rams defense is going to be stop the run game, which now we can say this confidently. It's Debo and Elijah Mitchell. It's not just Elijah Mitchell. If they make it a point to take Debo out of the game, you can glue Jalen Ramsey to Debo Samuel and do a pretty good job of eliminating him if you wanted to. The Rams haven't done that this season. They may have to look into it. But I think George Kittle really is a guy that this line at 52.5, if he hasn't played this poorly over the last couple of weeks, I was expecting this line to be around 60, 61. But I think people are forgetting how good he is and how close he is now to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to open up with the Niners line. I love George Kittle. You want to spring, I think he's plus 155 to get in the end zone. Those are great odds because I think he's going to be targeted often. But to talk about my Rams, I love Cam Akers this game. I love him to bounce back in a huge way. Obviously, he fumbled right before half, his head hitting the ground. Right before the end zone, right before halftime. And then he ran through in the second half. If he makes that first down, they pretty much lock up the game. He didn't hold the ball with 2 hands. He held it with 1, and Ndamukong Suh ripped it out. So McVay is not Bill Belichick. He's not the type to punish you and sit you down, and now you don't get carries. He supports his players. He's going to get a workload. Cam Akers played essentially one full game in his career against the San Francisco 49ers. He had 9 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. He is, I think, what gets the Rams over the hump against this team. Because when you're looking at Matt Stafford and you look at the way they've been playing defense, they do a great job of stopping the run with their front four, and they're able to drop more in coverage and clog the passing lanes for Matt Stafford. Makes it more difficult when you see the turnovers. If the Rams can establish Cam Akers getting first downs on the ground, and they have to bring in another safety or an additional linebacker to help stop the run, that's where you can see Matt Stafford really take over. He hasn't been able to do that against this team. So the key to success for this LA Rams team is Cam Akers. He's going to be in all of my bets. Him to score a touchdown, the best odds I saw were plus 115. I think the lowest were like minus 110. His over rushing and receiving yards, 82.5. Like I said, he got that in rushing alone last year against them. Longest rush over 13.5. Longest reception over 10.5. I just think he's going to be such a big part of this offense, especially if they're trying to take away Cooper Kupp. So Cam Akers, I think, is going to be the star of this game if the Rams are going to win. If they don't win, it's probably because everybody got shut down. But if they win, we're going to be talking about Cam Akers heading into the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, now you got my mind thinking about a little George Kittle, Tyler Higbee, tight end, same game parlay action. Now that's interesting. That's an interesting
Didn't you
hit me
hit that
today.
on Thanksgiving? You were all over tight ends on Thanksgiving,
I
if
was
I remember correctly.
all over tight ends on Thanksgiving. I hit Dawson Knox
And
and
Schultz.
Schultz and um was that it? I feel like I had like Jimmy Graham in there or something, right? It was like whoever scored the. Oh, I
Was it
think I had.
Waller? Darren Waller was the last time Darren Waller played before he got injured.
Oh yeah, frick. What was I think, or was it? Oh, it
It was
was not.
definitely
It was
it was
Knox.
Knox and Schultz. I know that.
Yeah, but and then earlier in the year when I had the Tunyon and Hawkinson hit in like 2 quarters or whatever, they went off. So brain's got me thinking a little Kittle Higby action might be in the cards for that game, and that I'm actually it might be in the cards. It's in my bet slip. It's +2, plus it's 27-1 right now for a Kittle touchdown, Higby touchdown, Higby to have 50, Kittle to have 70. So that is 27-1 right now. So that's if anybody out there is thinking on the Higby Kittle train, that's probably what I'm going to put $10 on. But that was just a spur of the moment bet after hearing Prop Holiday talk about this is the benefit of me being able to host with Prop Holiday is I get his lines before everybody else, so that I make sure to throw everything in before the line goes. But so moving on, those are the games. I think the Rams have this one. Like I said, it's so hard in the NFL to beat a team 3 times in one season. It doesn't even matter if it's the best team and the worst team. Beating a team 3 times in any sport, it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. I think the Rams, we haven't even touched on the notion that if they win, they get to play in their stadium in the Super Bowl. They're -3.5 right now. I think that is about right, but I do think that the Rams do get this done finally against the Niners. OBJ is feeling himself. I can't believe where this guy started, where this guy was, week 5 versus where he is now. Just a crazy story for him this year. Stafford, obviously, you have to have a ton. Stafford's got to carry his balls around in a wheelchair after that game. I mean, like in a wheelbarrow, not a wheelchair, in a wheelbarrow after that game. To just beat Tom Brady straight up in regulation after everything is against you. The momentum is against you. Tom Brady's on the other side of the field. The crowd is against you. And to walk that off the way he did, I mean, you have to have a ton of confidence coming into this game. I mean,
He
so
he
so
quoted himself. He gave a quote. He said, "I stole his soul." Being able to steal his, and that's Tom Brady. Jared Goff doesn't do that. I
no.
mean, Patrick Mahomes doesn't say stuff like that. So, I mean, Stafford. I'm glad that I made my jersey purchase for 2021, the Matt Stafford one.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. You did do that. Nice callback. Callback to like a week 3 propcast. This is so sad. We're almost at the end of the year. Anyway, back to betting. So I actually have something interesting this week. For those who did not know or would be interested, we now have a BettorOff. We have a BettorOff subreddit on Reddit, and we have a BettorOff Reddit account that we use to contribute to different sports betting, subreddits, and post slips and give advice and discussion, whatever. But I was on it the other day, and I actually came across this parlay from a user that I actually really really like, and I'm like, I'm actually going to take this and use it as my parlay for the week, borrow it as my parlay for the week with credit. And then it also opened up a new idea. If you're someone who uses Reddit and you're a sports bettor and you listen to the Better Off podcast, be sure to hit up the subreddit. It's at Better Off, and drop what parlays you like, what bets you like in the subreddit. And if I see them or someone on our staff sees them and likes them, I have no problem throwing them in the propcast and using them as my own. I think it's a great idea. We're trying to build this community in the app and outside of the app and everything. So I think this was a really cool idea when I saw it, and I would like to keep building on it going forward. So this is a parlay courtesy of the user Bing Bong Boofer. Didn't pick it because of the name, but it worked perfectly. It is a 7-leg parlay but it's a FanDuel same game parlay plus. So you'll only be able to make this bet currently on FanDuel. It's 2 legs from the first game and 5 legs from the second game. So the legs from the first game, simple: Mahomes and Burrow both over. Mahomes, when I got it, was 285.5. Burrow was 287.5. So basically even. I think Mahomes probably hits this. Burrow hits this in one of 2 ways. Either it's a shootout or they're playing from behind. And I like those to be the 2 options. I mean, I don't see a world in which the Bengals are running the ball to kill clock, late in the third, early in the fourth quarter. So Mahomes and Burrow both over. And then this was what really caught my attention was the Rams Niners same game parlay, which is a Higbee TD, nice, a Debo Samuel TD, Stafford over 247, uh, OBJ over 50.5, and the Rams minus 3.5. So those 7 legs together, that's Higbee TD, Debo TD, Stafford over, OBJ over, and the Rams to cover, plus the Mahomes and Burrow over, is 134 to 1. It is I put $5 on it to win 673.50. But I really like that. I definitely like the Mahomes and Burrow over. If Mahomes can even replicate a fraction of the game he had last week, he probably won't need to replicate a fraction of the game he had last week. But I like the Mahomes over and the Burrow over because again, he's either going to have to keep up with Mahomes or get back up to Mahomes, and that's the way they're going to do it is Jamar Chase and T Higgins and Tyler Boyd and all that. And then Higbee TD, Debo TD, Stafford over passing yards as well. Like I said, I like the Rams, and I think if the Rams are going to win this game and cover minus 3.5, Stafford is going to hit his over. And then OBJ, I think, has a big day over 15.5 as well. So thank you, Bing Bong Boofer, for the play on the on Reddit. I am going to credit this to you 100%. So that's $5 to win 673.50. I don't have a touchdown score parlay because there are only 2 games, but if I did, I would consider the Kittle and Higbee one to kind of fit into that role. So I'm going to place that. It's going to be 10 to win 270 as well. And then Bob, do you have any last whimsical bets or advice or anything like that?
In general, I mean, you kind of touched on just having like a tight end touchdown. I'm not pumping FanDuel here, but you can combine multiple touchdowns with multiple games. So I'm probably gonna go running back, tight end, running back, tight end. Or like I'm feeling running backs and tight end, so I'll probably go mixing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers, and George Kittle. I don't have the odds in front of me, but like those tight ends and tight ends and running backs are what I'm feeling this weekend for championship weekend. That's what I'm leaning at. I love the matchups. I love that it goes against whatever last week was because it's very hard to do this. It's very hard to replicate. And it's just taking advantage of matchups. So running backs, tight ends will be my focus for championship weekend.
Heard it here first. Big weekend for the tight ends and the running backs. Bob, we only got one more game after this, man. This has been a long, arduous season with many consecutive lost PropCast parlay bets, and I'm gonna sleep with this thing until I hit a bet. That's what I'm gonna start doing. And we got championship season. I am looking forward to it. I know everybody else who has any sort of pulse is looking forward to it as well. So that is going to wrap up the preview for the championship weekend of the PropCast Parlay. Make sure to check out the PropCast Parlay on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at BettorOff Sports, Instagram and TikTok are at BettorOff. On subreddit, hit up the R BettorOff subreddit. Give us, if you use the app and you like it, give us some feedback, give us some suggestions. Let us see your bet slips, your wins. Let's just talk about some sports betting. Let's build the community. And that is, make sure to get the picks in for these games, props, over under, spread. Who do you like? Get them into the BettorOff app before kickoff. But that is going to wrap it up. So for Bob Stanley, I'm Dan Skidlowski. We are looking forward to some great games. Good luck, happy betting, and we will see you in the Super Bowl PropCast coming up in a little bit. Take care, guys. See you later.